using the text orientation and writing modes. Here's a preview of what we're going to build. As you can see, this pirate section has a nice hero message going down vertically along the side. Now let's get started. Now what you saw in the example, all of those elements are going to be grouped together. So from the content pane, I'm going to grab a container element and click to drag it into the canvas. On the styles pane, give it a class name. I'm going to name it Pirate Section. This way it can be styled later. Next, I'm going to add a heading 1 element into the page. By clicking the little A icon upon hover, it will launch the text edit mode, where then I can type in my text, yo ho ho. Then to duplicate that, I'm going to click the little duplicate icon, looks like a double page. It'll pop in another heading 1, and when I double click, I can then type in my heading text, A Pirate's Life for Me. Now, to have these headings always have the same styles, if you change the Apply Styles control to all elements of this type, that means all heading 1s will share the same exact styles, size, color, font. So in this case, I'm going to give it the font, the Garmin, and I'm going to bold it. Now, specifically for the yo ho ho, I'm going to have it have a little bit of a different style. So if I select it and give it a specific class, so this special class I'm going to name Vertical Hero so I can identify it. And now I can give it different styles than my second heading. In this case, under the design section, I'm going to scroll down and give it the Alpha Slab 1 font, and I'm going to choose a fallback for unsupported browsers to Arial Black, and I'm going to make it a nice large size. While I'm at it, let's go ahead and give it a color. If you click on the little color box, it'll open up the color wheel. You can either pick a color off screen or move the little dot around in the wheel to choose the color that you want. Or, of course, you can always type in the hex and RGB code. Now the second heading, I'm going to select it, and I'm also going to give it a special class name. In this case, I'm just going to name heading. Yes, I know, it's not very semantic, but just for this demonstration. And I'm going to then apply the color, nice orange, and click OK, and also make it a bit larger. The last item I'm going to add is a paragraph element. So from the content pane, I'm going to select the paragraph. I put it in the wrong spot. You can drag and drop to rearrange items. Add that class name, always a good habit to adopt. I'm going to put Pirate Paragraph. Double click to add in your own text. In this case, I've already got a whole block of special pirate text that I can just paste in. Now the styles that I've applied here are going to be for fallback first. This is for all browsers that don't support the CSS Grid method. So as you can see, everything is just stacked on top of each other. Now, to go ahead and add a fancy design for CSS Grid, I'm going to click the Design For icon up at the top. And here I can add a support rule for display grid. Click on Done. And now in the Styles pane under the Design for Control, I can now select Display Grid. Now, any styles that I apply for the layout or the look will only apply if the browser the viewer is using has grid capabilities. So to change the layout, I'm going to select the container, the pirate section container, and under the layout, display grid, and then I'm going to launch the grid editor. Using the grid editor, you can now set up rows and columns to hold the page content or the section content. In this case, I'm going to use the top plus arrow to add in another section so that we've got a grid of 2 across and 3 down. You can change the values of each cell for their width and height. If you select the control up at the top, in this case the auto, and then on the side you can change it. I'm going to be making each cell use the FR unit, the 2FR and the 1FR for equal space. Now, what I'm going to use for our placement method is the grid area names. I can indicate exactly where I want each element to be placed within my grid. So if the goal is to have that heading be up and down vertically, I'm going to make it take up all 3 blocks. Vertical hero. And in this next cell, I'm going to put the heading. And in the final 2 cells, I'm going to put the paragraph. These are just simple names just for this demonstration. Obviously, you'll want to use probably better naming conventions in your own designs. Click OK. And yes, everything goes wild. That's because we have not yet actually identified which element is the names that we had just provided for our grid. So I'm going to select the first heading and scroll down to Grid and Flexbox Layout Controls and change the control grid to Grid Area Based Placement. And I'm going to pop in that vertical hero name. And I'm going to repeat the process for the other 2 elements, giving them the exact same name that we used within the grid editor. Finally, the last one, the paragraph. Again, change the grid control and change the name to paragraph. Okay, now everything is essentially in the same spot that we had identified within the grid editor. Now, I'm going to change this orientation of the yo-ho-ho. So select the vertical hero and under layout, scroll down to the direction and writing mode. Here is where you can change the direction and the writing mode to be able to lay out the text in a different direction. So in this case, the writing mode, I'm going to change to vertical, right to left. And now it's going to take up all 3 of those cells that we indicated in the grid editor. Pretty sweet. At this point, it's just tweaking. I'm going to go back to the design for my hero. I'm going to change some of the spacing. The line height can be adjusted. For me, I think 1 is just fine. Or even adjust the size. Launch the grid editor again, and here you can apply a gap between the rows and the columns to add some extra spacing. I'm also going to justify flex start for the items, which then puts them in a start position within their cells. I want that ho 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 hero a little closer. If I select it again and go back to those grid and flexbox layout controls, I can change the justify self to center to move it right into the middle of that cell. I'm going to add just a little bit of padding to the whole container, 10 pixels all the way around. While it looks good, I think adjusting the spacing between the letters within this hero would make it look even better. So under the design section, I'm going to go in and give it about 4 pixels of space between the letters. Awesome, and that wraps it up.